What is going on, guys? Josh Pitke here, January 18th today. And I just feel like the word of the Lord is for me to encourage somebody today to walk up the mountain of God and to obtain life the way God meant it to be. And I was reading in Micah chapter 4, and I've been reading this message remix. I've had this Bible forever, but it's so cool, man. But Micah is an Old Testament prophet in obviously the Old Testament, and written hundreds of years even before Christ. But God is speaking through this prophet Micah, and he's speaking, I believe, of the church and about what God is going to be doing in the last days when people are going to be rising up to live life the way God intended it to be, because there's been many people through the ages that haven't lived life the way God has intended it to be. And so Micah chapter 4, verse 1 says, "But when all is said and done, God's temple on the mountain firmly fixed will dominate all mountains." Obviously, it's speaking metaphorically. It's speaking truth. Towering above all surrounding hills, people will stream to it, and many nations set out for it, saying, "Come, let's climb God's mountain. Let's go to the temple of Jacob's God. He will teach us how to live. We'll know how to live God's way. He'll teach us how to live. We'll know how to live God's way." And I think that's what God wants to do, man. He wants to teach you how to live. You maybe, I mean, we know, I just read an article about the homeless shelters in my city in Sarnia, Ontario, and how they're to capacity and they're full. And if you've ever been to Sarnia, if you've been to Canada, you know it's very cold in the winter, and nobody wants to be homeless, especially in the winter. I mean, that's not fun. And how they're attributing a lot of the homelessness to drug addiction. And there's so many people that are addicted to opiates, addicted to methamphetamines, addicted to fentanyl, addicted to whatever drug, and they'd rather get their fix than pay their rent. And I'm like, if there's a time when we need God, and not just the idea or religion or whatever, none of that stuff. We need God. We need His presence. We need real relationship with Him, and we need to learn how to live God's way. And I was just thinking about that today, man. The blessing of living God's way, the blessing of living with God. I mean, just think about that for a minute. You might not even be a believer, and you're watching this. You're thinking, "This is crazy. You guys talk about God, and I believe in evolution, or I believe in this, or I believe in that." And it's like, if you could taste and see what it's like to live with God, to live with God's backing, to live with God's power in your life, to live with His influence motivating you and pushing you forward into what He has for you. And it's just so awesome. There's nothing like living in God's presence and living with a sense of purpose and with a sense of just that your life is actually meaningful every single day, and not just temporally but eternally. There's something really awesome about that, man. It's so cool. And it's what life is about. Life is about living for eternity, living your life in the light of eternity, and in the light of even the judgment seat of Christ, which isn't some, you know, necessarily a scary place, although it is in a sense, but it's also a place of reward. It's a place of of reward, and a place of just that believers are looking forward to, where God's going to say, "Well done, good and faithful servant. You've been faithful with a few things. Enter into, the joy of your master." And man, when you know Jesus, when you know God, what the amazing scope that life takes on when you know Jesus in a real way and you start to live life God's way. And so I want to encourage you to climb God's mountain. Climb His mountain. Find out His blueprint for your life. Find out His calling for your life. And you're never going to be the same when you understand God's got a calling on my life. It's not just to go to church, but it's to, and there's so many distractions. I think this is one of the things that um, we see in our culture, especially, is there's so many distractions. There's so many things that are buffeting us on every side, and it's so easy to get derailed from the mountain of God and from climbing up the mountain to see your purpose and to see your calling and to see what God has for you. And He has great and awesome things for you. For you, think about that. Like for you, not just for your pastor or these special people or whatever. It's for you. You're a special person. God's got something awesome for you, but you've got to figure it out. You got to climb the mountain. You've got to get closer to Jesus. You got to push. You got to push past the apathy, push past the laziness, push past the depression, push past. So many people. I mean, so many people have said to me, "Oh, I've tried to read the Bible, but I don't understand it." I'm like, "That's because you read it for 2 minutes. You didn't study. You didn't push. You read the Bible for 10 minutes or whatever, and then you went back to your entertainment, or you went back to the things that aren't producing life inside of you." So anyway, I want to encourage you to climb God's mountain and to find out His blueprint for your life and what He has for you. And you're never going to be the same as you taste and see that the Lord is good. So I apologize in advance for my hair, and my wife is telling me that my haircut is terrible. That's what she says to me. So anyway, and she also tells me to shave because I look too old. And so that's one of the whatever. I know I look like a scrub right now, but I clean up nicely. Bless you guys. Have a good night tonight. I love you. Climb God's mountain. Climb it. Focus. Push. Do whatever you can do. Get sharper. Climb the mountain. He's got something good for you. He's got something good for you in 2019. And that I want you to enter into it. You're never going to be the same. I just encourage you to push past the noise and push past the tiredness and do something. Move. Climb the mountain. See God's blueprint for your life. I know I said it like 20 times now, but it's in me to say so. Bless you guys. 7.5 minutes. Have a great night.